Hey guys, guess what? In this episode, I actually have games to recap. Welcome back, and yes, we are back to hockey basically. I say basically. Now, technically, you could say, well, regular season hasn't started yet, and regular season hasn't, but at least we are getting some dosage of hockey with preseason already here. Sorry, kind of need to fix my camera. There we go. Alrighty. So, but yeah, hockey is back once again. I'm so happy, and regular season is just around the corner. I am so happy. But first things first, as always, remember I have a great partnership with SeatGeek. You get $20 off of your first purchase if you use promo code Caniac Reports, all one word. It is a great deal if you're trying to save money on some tickets, whether that is to a hockey game like a preseason game or to a comedy show or a live concert. Really up to you. A couple other podcast news is another one for you people listening on Apple Podcasts. I have the Caniac Report Plus out. So, where if you do not like listening to ads at all, that is a great deal to have right there. You get your first week for free. First week as like a trial run for free, which means 2 episodes for free without having to pay for anything while listening to the episode with no ads at all. So just giving you guys more options on how to listen to these episodes and all that type of stuff, whether you like them with ads or without ads or whatever. Another thing too is that currently right now there is a survey going on the podcast platform. I'll leave it on the YouTube description and in the description of wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, wherever you are listening to me right now. It is found in the description. So if you can fill that out, that will be awesome. I have already seen quite a bit of responses already. Thank you guys so much. I am just trying to get good information just so I can make the podcast better for you who is listening right now. So that's pretty much it for stuff dealing with the podcast. So now I'm talking about things around the league, and we're seeing more and more teams revealing, guess what? New jerseys. The first team is the Edmonton Oilers. They released new jerseys, and I can tell you, when I saw those new jerseys, honestly, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't hate it. I don't like it. It's just, to me, it's a very, very new look for the Oilers because the big logo isn't really on there. The big known Oilers logo isn't on there. It's just a word symbol. That's pretty much it. So it's a very brand new look. And I just think because of that, I just don't know if I like it or if I don't like it. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are for the Oilers jersey, but in my opinion, I don't really like it that much. Really, really don't. Well, sorry. Okay, maybe I don't like it. It's tough though, but it's still I'm kind of feeling more in the mushy middle type of area when it comes to looking at that jersey. I might not like it though. Probably I probably lean toward that area instead of liking it, but still it's a very different look. So I just don't know. I'm so accustomed to the original Oilers logo. I just am. That's just how I am. But the next thing I want to talk about in terms of news around the league is that Petrangelo, if you guys know that player, Alex Petrangelo, who is known to be a very, very good defenseman, if you guys had not heard, it seemed unlikely that he was going to play at all this season. Well, recently, Petrangelo spoke, and he said that he is not ruling out on not playing this season. So that's going to be interesting for Vegas, considering that if he does play, they're going to have to activate him off of LTIR, which means that's 8 million something bucks they're going to have to put into their budget, basically. And honestly, If you look at their cap space right now, if they factored that big contract in, they'd be over the cap by around $3 million. So it's going to be interesting if he comes back on what Vegas is going to have to do in order to shed off some cap space. They've always been creative with cap space, though. I'm sure they're going to find a way somehow just so that they can maybe get Petrangelo back. And that D is going to be looking even more scarier with Petrangelo back on that team, even if you include Noah Hannafin, Shea Theodore. Like, that's already a good D. But if you add Petrangelo, my gosh, just wow. Another thing, too, though, another team that revealed new jerseys. This is for their 20th anniversary jersey, and that is the Minnesota Wild. And it's a homage to the start of the season where they were wearing those jerseys on the road. And I believe when I saw those jerseys, they're only going to be worn a few times this regular season. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think of them. I think they are very nice looking. I actually really like more of those jerseys than I would say the Oilers jerseys, in my opinion. But regardless, I mean, I think those jerseys are really, really nice. And if for those of you who do not know, a little bit of hockey trivia for you, their very first season was kind of the turn of the century, the year 2000. So it's going to be interesting seeing them play in those jerseys. But that's kind of it for stuff around the league. And now I mean, I put this under my league news in the show notes, but it does deal with Carolina. And I found this very, very interesting. For those of you who don't know, there is a guy named Mark Lazarus who I believe mainly covers Chicago. I could be wrong about that, but I think he mainly covers Chicago. But he went to both Vegas and Carolina because those two teams are linked to trying to get the players related to the Hockey Canada case. And I found this very, very interesting. He was going to ask questions, and he asked those type of Hockey Canada player questions to Noah Hannafin at Vegas. And Hannafin, I think, I mean, obviously he was expressing his opinion on the whole thing. He was basically saying, hey, we're going to try, again, I'm paraphrasing here, but he says we're going to try and lift anybody that comes through that locker room. So Hannafin had his response, but what's very interesting is after that response, since Mark Lazarus came to Vegas and tried to question them about the Hockey Canada players being linked to them, he kind of got his press credentials taken out and was removed from practice because the team was wanting to be lip tight shut about that whole thing, which I found very interesting. But when he came to Carolina, it wasn't like that, actually. When he came to Carolina, because again, Carolina's been linked to both Carter Hart and Michael McLeod. And when Mark Lazarus went there, Brent DeMore basically said that, listen, the big decisions are obviously made by Eric Tulsky, but it'd be the same scenario as it would be with getting any other player. Again, I'm kind of paraphrasing here. I'm not saying that's exactly what he said, but it was a little bit more of an inviting environment from being at Carolina than it was about Vegas when it comes to inquiring about the Hockey Canada players. And when I saw that, I was like, you know what? Again, I know everybody has their opinion on the Hockey Canada thing. I realize that. But the fact that Carolina, to me, was more inviting than Vegas, I was very proud of being a Hurricanes fan when I saw that. Really, really was. They were not shy of the questions being asked by Mark Lazarus. And the article is on The Athletic. So if you don't have a subscription, you're probably not going to read it, even though you might be able to get maybe like a free trial or something. But regardless, I was very happy Carolina was a little bit more inviting than Vegas, and the fact that they didn't shy away from the questions Mark Lazarus asked them, unlike Vegas, who wanted to keep everything lip tight shut. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'd rather be a fan of a team that's a little bit more inviting and just kind of being more open to the questions being asked about them than a team like Vegas that was kind of keeping it lip tight shut. Because to me, what that shows from Vegas is that they care more about their reputation per se than being linked to those players. Again, that's just my opinion on it when it comes to Vegas's atmosphere on the whole Hockey Canada players, but I found that very, very interesting. So, Hurricanes news obviously already started with the Mark Lazarus thing, but if you guys didn't know or didn't participate, the Hurricanes 5K happened Sunday. I saw pictures. What's funny about that whole event, and I don't know if you guys saw on the Hurricanes, I think official Twitter or any type of social media they have. I found it so funny. They have players on those golf carts riding around and just spraying all the people that were participating in the 5K. Like you had Seth Jarvis spraying, Logan Stankoven, Frederick Anderson. It was just so funny. And you know what? I'm happy people enjoyed the 5K. I'm hoping people enjoy the 5K, but obviously I wasn't there. I'm not a 5K type of person, just not. But I'm happy for those that participated because, again, it creates a good, great culture for the Hurricanes of Hurricane fans coming up to these Hurricane events. And I just, again, it's events like that show me that the Hurricanes have a really good culture. The next thing, and to me, this was awesome because for those of you who don't know, I am a huge documentary fan. I really am. And apparently, the trailer for season 2 of Face Off Inside the NHL debuts on October 3rd, and they already released like a teaser trailer, I believe. But man, I am excited to see that. And I said this probably maybe a few months ago, but one of the players that's going to be talked about in that new season is going to be Seth Jarvis. So I am very excited to see how that episode goes with Seth Jarvis because you can tell, like from the first season, each episode is based on a certain player. So I can't wait. Really, really can't wait. I can't wait to watch the episode with Seth Jarvis. I can't wait to watch the episodes of the other players too, just because I love documentaries. And yeah, I am so pumped for that. Just big news. So happy the trailer was revealed. You can find it on YouTube, and it's I think it's going to be very, very fun. So another thing too on Hurricanes news, obviously Hurricanes have been kind of dealing with minor injuries. Again, nothing really major. But obviously the minor injuries are Slavin, Chatfield, Miller, and Kochekov. Now, couple of, I think you could say probably sort of good news is both Slavin and Miller we're seeing on the ice. Slavin, I believe today, as I'm recording this on a Thursday, was seeing in a yellow no contact jersey. So that's good that they're at least skating. We don't know what's going on with all these players, of course. I think with Slavin, we kind of know just because he was wearing a knee brace before training camp kind of started. But again, no major concern. I expect to see them on opening night. Until Brindamore says something, I'm taking him at his word for that type of stuff. So that's kind of it in terms of news around the league and obviously around the Hurricanes. I'm going to get to a sponsor, and then I will get to recapping both the Tampa and the Florida game. Football is back, and so is your shot at big wins. With DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL, your game day instincts can score you real money fast. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, from breakout rookies to elite quarterbacks, and unlock the upside every snap brings. The better your calls, the bigger your payout. And here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This season, play your players' instincts. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Play just $5, get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call, ride the upside. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. Okay, so when it comes to preseason games, I'm just going to let you guys all know. I view them completely different, and I think they should be viewed completely different from regular season games. And the reason why is because, one, there's a lot of circumstances going on, especially with the young players that are trying to probably maybe make the roster. And obviously, you have regular roster players that are trying to vie for different, maybe different positions in terms of the lineup, like Stankoven, for example. And obviously, when it comes to the roster players that we know are going to make opening night, I mean, obviously, you want to play good, but ultimately, the biggest thing is to obviously just not get hurt because it's not worth it in these preseason games. They really don't mean anything for those that they know their role on this team and they know they're going to make it. So the first game, obviously, is the Tampa game, and these were the lines. So the first line was Hall, Stankoven, and Blake. And I will say one thing about that line. I thought that line was obviously probably the best line during that game. And what's interesting when it comes to that line, like I found it again very, very good. But again, I kind of take it with a grain of salt at the same time, just because you look at Tampa's lineup on the other end, it was composed of mainly prospects. And Stankoven, I think, playing in the middle between those two players, I thought he played fine. I thought he actually played pretty good. You look at his faceoff stats, they were above 50%. So I think that shows a promising sign that maybe Stankoven can be that solution to our second line center. The second line was composed of Giovanni Smith, who he's interesting me a little bit, just a little bit. Tyson Jost, Kevin LeBlanc, and then third line was composed of Bradley Nadeau, Skylar Brindamore, Josiah Slavin, and then the fourth line was composed of Unger Sorum, Robidas, Gunler, and then for the defensive pairs, you had Nikishin, Trillington, Bayreuther, Nystrom, Finsor, and Lejolt. Now, first period, honestly, I think if you saw probably the first 5 minutes, you could tell this was really a preseason game just because both teams were mainly really sloppy. It really, really was. Even though I thought Carolina was the better team, you can tell it was very, very rusty. And one thing I would say that stuck out for me, obviously, was the only goal in the game by Tampa. It was a Lilleberg with zero point 0.8 seconds left. And when he scored, I was like, oh, but time is done. First period is over, right? But apparently the refs looked at it and they were like, yep, he did actually score with zero point 0.8 seconds left. And to me, what was very discouraging because one player that's very, very trying to make the roster on this team is Bradley Nadeau. And for those who are at the game or watching it, you probably know where I'm going with on this. But what led up to that goal was the fact that Nadeau had the puck in his own end along the boards. And obviously, he was getting pressured by a Tampa Bay player. And he did not treat that pressure very well. He kind of threw out his confidence, his instincts, or whatever, and he was just all over the place. Just he he cared more about getting the puck out than making a good play. And one thing about Nadeau I do want to talk about. I think his shot is amazing. Obviously, that is what he is mostly known for, is his shot. I also think he's a very good skater too. The biggest thing that I think that's going against Nadeau is his hockey senses, because you could tell right there that he was more focused. Like I said, I'm going to say it again here. He was more focused on getting the puck out or getting out of that situation than making a smart play. So obviously, it got turned over. It got passed to Lilleberg, and he was able to score. So that whole play right there, I mean, yeah, I blame Nadeau on it. I really do. He should have played better, especially since he's not in that position of he needs to make the roster. Again, I don't think he needs to make the roster. I don't think he's going to just because we're loaded on the wings. But it's, I mean, that period did not look good for him. It really did not. Now, second period, you had Chafee scoring for Tampa as well. That made it 2-0. And another thing, too, I actually forgot to mention this, but our goalies were Rushlin, no, I think it was Caden Primo throughout the entire game, which I was a little bit surprised. I thought we might see Kaziev, but it was Primo throughout the game. I actually thought Primo played a very, very good game. I don't blame either of those goals on him. But Tampa scored in the second period, made it 2-0. And again, a little bit disheartening to see, but again, it is preseason. Not going to stamp on this team for a game that really, at the end of the day, doesn't really mean anything. But regardless, Canes, I mean, they put on lots of shots. I believe they had tons of power play chances too, and they just couldn't score on those power play chances. And I did see this whole game, and seeing those power play chances, I was like, man, that just it sucks. Seeing all those power play chances going to waste. So again, I do realize it's preseason, but you do kind of want to see the power play being a little bit better. Another thing too that I want to talk about, I already talked about Nadeau a ton, but I think another focus on what I kind of wanted to see was two other players, and that was Stankoven playing at second line center, Nadeau, and I think Nikishin had some focus on him just because I think Hurricane fans are very eager to see him play, getting lots of minutes. He obviously got quite a few minutes that game. Honestly, with Nikishin, I think he played fine, but there were times where he was really holding back his shot. Obviously, there was that one shot where he broke his stick. That was just an unfortunate situation. But regardless, the one thing I will say with Nikishin is you have a great shot. Use it. Do not. I felt like in that game, when it came to Nikishin, that he definitely symbolized that player of that saying of over analysis leads to paralysis. He was just thinking, I thought, way too much. Go off of your instinct, man. Go off of what you are good at. Again, I didn't think it was a bad game from Nikishin. It's just we could have seen, I think, probably just a little bit better. And obviously, a couple of players that stuck out to me was Finsor and the goal. Now, I understand the hype around Charles Alexis Lejolt. And I understand that because you look at how he plays, man, he is a good skater. And so is Finsor, too. The thing is with Lejolt, unlike Finsor, is that he's big, massive player that can skate. So, I mean, I could see him being a player that's trying to crack the roster, even though it's going to be really hard. Honestly, I just don't see any of our prospects cracking the roster for opening night just because we have so many players. But I mean, I kind of said this in the season preview in the last episode if you want to hear more of it. But I think just from looking at the depth, looking at the roster, I feel like it's a little bit easier for a guy playing on D like Lejolt to make it than a guy like Nadeau, just because you have more depth in terms of forwards than you do of defensemen. So Obviously, in the third period, Cranes were down 2-0, and you had Stankoven scoring from LeBanc and Nikishin. And obviously, that was a good shot from LeBlanc, and Stankoven was able to tip it. So at least we got to see a goal during that game. And Stankoven was able to get it. Good for Stankoven, even though, again, preseason. And I like seeing that. Oh, another thing, too, I want to talk about this game about is I can't remember if this happened, I believe, in the first or second period, but obviously we thought we scored a goal with LeBanc scoring come coming in trying to make the puck not be offsides. And I was at that game and just seeing that play, I was like, I thought that was offsides, and it turns out it kind of was. And I thought it was going offsides before he scored. So yeah, it's disheartening seeing LeBlanc not getting the goal there, but I think honestly, I would say the PTO players, Giovanni Smith, LeBlanc, especially specifically those two players, they've been doing pretty decent. I would say a little bit more so Smith, and I think if you just look at those two players of what's needed, I think you kind of need the physicality of Smith probably a little bit more than LeBanc, even though I think LeBanc overall is a better player than Smith. But Smith has kind of impressed me. He obviously got into a fight in these couple games. And yeah, so that's kind of it for the things I wanted to talk about with the Tampa game. And now I'm going to get to the Florida game here. And the Florida game, we had a lot more NHL roster ready players in it than the Tampa game. Because the first line comprised of Aho, Jarvis, and Ehlers, the line I think all of us are waiting to see come the start of regular season. You have KK, Svetch, and Nadeau, Smith, Suzuki, LeBlanc, Robinson, Ryapkin, and Unger Sorum. And then your defensive pairs were Ghost, Badinka, Riley, Hamo Salmi, Lejolt, and Seeley. And the goalies, we actually played two goalies that game, and that was Anderson and Michikov, which we'll get to him in a few minutes here. But I will say one thing when it comes to the Florida game. I only saw the entire first period and the early part of the second period. I did not get to see the whole game. So I'm obviously going to tell you what I thought from what I saw and then what I thought from doing the research after this game transpired. So, first period, obviously, Carolina started off on the right foot. You had Ryan Suzuki scoring from Riley and LeBanc. And good for Suzuki for scoring that goal. Again, I think that's a player that I just do not think is going to make the roster at all, especially compared to the likes of Lejolt or Bradley Nadeau. But you know what? Good for him for getting the goal. That was good hard work. And obviously with Riley making it very, very. I think that was tipped actually. Now that I am remembering that goal, but very, very good goal from Suzuki. And right after that goal, or as the goal, I'm not really sure, but you have Giovanni Smith fighting Harper from Florida. And I'm telling you, that Smith guy, I will admit, he's impressed me. The only thing about Smith, I just don't know if it's going to work out. I think it's just his skating ability. He tends to be just a little bit slower than the other players, but regardless, Smith, I really do like the physicality that he brings. And I really do think that physicality is kind of needed, even though he's probably not going to be seeing NHL games. So, again, a player that's on PTO, I think, is doing pretty good. Obviously, you see the situation he's in. You know he's going to try and play his hearts out because he's trying to find an NHL regular job. So after that fight and after that goal, you had KK scoring from Svetch and Robinson. That was a great goal as both Robinson and Svetch were kind of coming in on the forecheck there. Svechnikov was able to pass it to KK, who was kind of a little bit all alone. in the slots and he scores. So good for KK for scoring. Obviously, I think he's a roster player that's where these preseason games I think a little bit might matter. Same with Stankoven, just because both those players are obviously trying to fight for that second line center position. So, KK, you know what? Prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong. But regardless, I think it's going to be Stankoven. I think it kind of needs to be Stankoven to be our second line center. And you know what? That goal's great and all that type of stuff. It really is. But how many games have we seen KK be good and him just not staying at that level? So, yes, great goal. I thought, from what I heard, that was probably our best line. But regardless, it's not can he show up? Is it the question with KK is can he show up consistently? And he hasn't for the past 3 seasons, which is why I'm more in favor of Stankoven being our second line center instead of KK. We've seen this for 3 consecutive years. So again, it's not like he can't do it. It's just he can't do it consistently. So one game is not going to make me change my opinion on KK. It's just not. Another thing too that I want to talk about in that first period, obviously Carolina's up 2-0, is Nadeau. I thought he looked a lot better compared to the first game. Really thought he displayed more confidence, better decision making skills. I actually, there was one time I think it was in the first period where he almost got a goal. It was some sort of a wraparound goal, but Tarasov, their goalie, was able to kind of get his skate on that puck. But if he wasn't, that puck was going to go in. Like Nadeau was that close of scoring. But I thought Nadeau looked really, really good in that first period. And then second period, the only thing that I saw was quite a few good chances on Ehlers, Aho, Jarvis line. And one thing that I will talk about with that line is, again, this was from what I saw, especially in early in the second period. I think we kind of saw pretty good chemistry from Ehlers and Aho, and that's kind of what us Canes fans want. We want that good chemistry between Ehlers and Aho. Heck, even with Ehlers, Aho, and Jarvis, we need very good chemistry all across that line. Now, obviously, I've said this before, but if Ehlers can be that kind of Jake Gensel type of player, then I think this team is going to be very, very good because we saw how good Jake Gensel was when he was paired with Aho. And Ehlers, I can tell you, man, he looks good in a Hurricanes jersey. He really, really does. And speaking of jerseys for the Hurricanes, I can tell they're really trying to promote their away jersey. And you know what? I know there are some Canes fans that don't like it. That is fine. You're allowed to have your own opinion. But regardless, I love it. I really, really do. So that was kind of it in the second period and the rest of the game that I saw. I had to go to an event. Now, the game was on in the background at the event that I went to Wednesday nights, but from what I saw, let's just say third period, and I'm sure you Canes fans know, there was a goalie change with Anderson coming out. Anderson played good. He stopped 8 shots, and that was all the shots he faced. So 100 save percentage right there. But Michikov, man, oof. I will say one thing about Michikov. This is a guy who played in the KHL, and that's a league that is probably the second or third best league behind the NHL. And just seeing those goals coming in and how Michikov handled those goals, I will admit I am just a little bit surprised. And again, I'm criticizing his performance, not the person. But After seeing those goals that he allowed, and I'm just going to go through them right here. You had Harper scoring. I think out of all three of those goals, the Harper goal is the less concerning goal. There was lots of Florida players right in front of him. He was kind of screened a little bit. I'm like, okay, not the worst goal to give. Was it fantastic give up? Probably not either, but it wasn't the worst goal to give. But the Gregor goal, the fact that he was able to get behind his own net, try and play the puck, and then fumbles and loses it altogether. Oof. Yikes. And the Benning goal, that didn't help out either. The Benning goal, I mean, Michikov had part of it, but he lets it slip through him. Really, really slip through him. And for a minute, I actually thought, I can't remember which Hurricanes player was at the other end of the other goal post there trying to get it out. I actually thought it didn't go in, but seeing the replay, it obviously did go in. But man, Michikov, man, he keeps that up. My nickname for him is going to be Missikov because he keeps missing on his saves. But oof. Oof. And then obviously Studnicka scores on the empty net and Florida wins 4-2. And listen, I am not going to be that Hurricanes fan that's going to freak out with the Hurricanes being 0-2 in the preseason. Ultimately, the preseason games, when it comes to wins and losses, it doesn't matter. What matters is the process. What matters is how is Nadeau looking? How is Jolt looking? How is Stankoven looking at second line center? That's what matters, not the wins and losses. To some extent, not the goals, but I think the goals, I think we can say are a little bit more important than obviously the wins and the losses. But I ain't freaking out about this team. We know how good this team's going to be. And yeah, so I will say the few things I wanted to see, it kind of said the same thing with Tampa game. The few things I kind of wanted to see from the Florida game was the chemistry between Ehlers and Aho. Really just that chemistry there. And Nadeau, obviously, again, there's lots of tension on Nadeau, and it's well deserved. He's a player that is trying to crack the roster. And KK, obviously, I think there's a good bit of spotlight on him this preseason to see if he just can't be the second line center anymore. I don't think he can. I really, really don't. I think it is Stankoven's position to lose. But KK, I will admit, I had a very good, solid game against Florida. But that one game is not going to write me off and be like, yeah, KK's the second line center. He's had plenty of good games before. It's a matter of consistency with him. So that's it on recapping the first two preseason games. And that is kind of how I'm going to take this going forward, obviously. So Monday's episode will be me recapping the next two games as this episode comes out. Tonight is going to be the game at Tampa, and then we come back home, play against Nashville on Sunday. I'll be recapping those two games on Monday's episode. And then I'll be recapping just the one game on Monday for Friday's episode, because that's all the games we have between now and when I record that Thursday. And then I think we have one more preseason game to go. But after that, we'll have a regular season hockey. Cannot wait. Really just can't wait for a home opener. It's going to be fun against the Devils. So I will see you guys Monday.